We're live. Okay. Chair Peasley, I think we've got the live stream up. So due to a technical issue, the live stream did not start at our meeting kickoff of 9:07, but we'll continue now if you're okay with that with the ADE presentation for the teacher leadership endorsement.
Yes, thank you. We will go ahead. Certification Advisory Committee will go ahead and continue with the ADE presentation. Director Wilbur, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chair Peasley. So continuing on with this, there is that additional artifact that we provided because that was a request just to see what was already available for coursework. If there are any additional questions, I'm happy to answer those at the end for you regarding the coursework piece. We did hold that additional stakeholder meeting in January of 2025. At that stakeholder meeting, we did review the need for that teacher leader endorsement. We reviewed the timeline. Also, again, going over in detail the feedback that we received from the CAC, as well as we looked at draft language version 3. And then we did open the survey again for additional feedback. Having said that, here is the updated proposed rule. And you'll see that no change as far as looking at the prerequisite certificates, the 3 years of experience, as well as some of the additional pieces that I had shared with you previously. We're really looking at adding in the completion of at least 15 clock hours of practicum or field experience in a kindergarten through grade 12 leader or administrative position. The practicum or field experience shall be supervised by an accredited institution or board-approved professional education organization and may be embedded in the courses described in subsection V2C. So that is that change that we have added per the feedback from the CAC. And so the rationale for this, of course, ensures that applicants have hands-on practical experience in teacher leadership. And so we did get feedback from our group. And then this is what the rule looks like in its entirety, the draft. And this is what we proposed. And we sent this back out. And you will see that it was a little bit split, just in complete transparency. And so I had the stakeholder group provide feedback on this, as well as I asked them to share with as many people present to groups about the field experience, because that's really what you had asked for. And we wanted to know what the field thought about this. And then, of course, why. You know, why do you agree or why do you disagree? And so I pulled comments for you also to be able to take a look at this. And I pulled a little bit of both for you to be able to see this. You know, in all, it is mostly looking at, you know, they're really wanting, the people that are looking at this are wanting the field experience, but I think there is a concern just about who will supervise, and does it have to be by an accredited institution? What is the process going to be for an educational organization? What does that look like, sound like, feel like? And so having said that part, I think I have one, there it goes. One more slide. The other part to this is with a school district. I know that there are concerns with school districts that have their own training that is considered to be leadership training. With that, I think that, you know, the concern there is there's not necessarily consistency or quality control from one district to another with the leadership training with that part. So that process would need to be vetted and approved by the board concerning the leadership training, whether that would be accepted or not under that coursework, those coursework topics. Having said that, that is something that the team has considered. And so what would that process look like? So the process would be the certification, if this goes through with that. The certification and educator recruitment and retention units would collaborate to create an RFI process that would be aligned to the requirements set forth in the endorsement. We would build a list of approved teacher leader endorsement opportunities that would fulfill the requirements of this endorsement. And the instructions for responding to that would be posted on the certification website along with the general overview of vendor requirements. And so you can see there that it would be included but not limited to the course topic outlines, et cetera, sample of the assessments, evaluation criteria for applying, and then the learning opportunities and notifications. So we would follow all of those pieces to ensure. And again, this endorsement, the purpose of this is to be able to set teacher leaders apart, right, from others in the district. And so really to elevate the profession and give LEAs, an opportunity to also set them apart. So it is optional. I want to remind you, it's not something that has to be done. And having said that, we have voices from the field here today to also share their thoughts with you. So I have first Paula Watkins, who is the program director from the AZ K-12 Center, followed by Jessica Zimmerman, who is a teaching and learning coach from Tempe Elementary School District, here to share their thoughts. And both of these ladies assisted on this endorsement as part of the stakeholder group.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Peasley and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Paula Watkins, and I serve as a program director at the Arizona K-12 Center. And one of my most impactful roles is leading the Arizona Teacher Solutions Team, which is a group of 21 teacher leaders from across the state who are committed to advancing their teacher leadership within their own practice. And through our 2-year program, team members explore leadership strategies, adult learning theory, mentoring, coaching, providing professional learning, and they collaborate to identify problems of practice within their own communities and schools. And they do this through what we call reflective growth cycles. The growth I witness from these educators is incredible, yet despite this deep learning, which is rooted deeply in the Arizona Teacher Leader Professional Standards, there is no formal way to recognize their expertise and field experience. And this is why I am in strong support of the teacher leadership endorsement. This endorsement reimagines what it means to lead from where you are and expands access to quality teachers across Arizona. And across the state, many educators are already serving in informal or unidentified leadership roles. Could be mentoring colleagues, providing professional learning, guiding curriculum efforts, yet their contributions often go unrecognized. This endorsement outlines key leader concepts and provides a way to acknowledge their work while creating a pathway for teachers who want to continue their growth through advanced learning and development. The requirement of 3 years of teaching experience aligns with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, and the Arizona Teacher Leader Professional Standards are grounded and aligned with national frameworks. These alignments ensure rigor, credibility, and consistency with best practices. Importantly, this endorsement benefits not only teachers, but also schools and districts. It gives leaders a clearer way to identify educators best suited for committees, initiatives, and collaborative work, while broadening opportunities to include voices who might not always be invited to the discussion of decision-making. The Arizona Department of Education has already taken steps to ensure community support, holding multiple meetings, collecting survey feedback from the profession. And just my personal thoughts, if we want to not only retain, but truly sustain Arizona educators, we must provide leadership pathways that do not require leaving their classrooms or their non-administrative roles of support. The teacher leadership endorsement honors and empowers teachers to lead from where they are. I believe there are untapped teacher leaders in our schools, And I also hold true that teachers who feel a sense of leadership are more committed to their schools and communities. What has been missing is the structure to help them shine. Anyone has the potential to be a leader in their system, and this endorsement provides recognition and opportunity to do so. Thank you for your consideration of this important step for Arizona teachers and bettering our schools for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the governing board. Gotta follow that up. That was fantastic. Oh my God. Okay. I am an instructional coach. I have been in my coaching role for 10 years now, in education for 16. And something that I was nodding back there like a bobblehead because she hit so many excellent points, which is why I wanted to serve with Jamie on this task force, because truly the teacher leader endorsement is about keeping leadership where it has the greatest impact, which is in the classroom. And we know that excellent instruction is the most important factor for student success, and teacher leaders are uniquely positioned to strengthen that every single day. So in my work as a coach, I've seen how powerful this can be. I call them my teacher babies, but my teacher babies, they model lessons for each other. They analyze student data with each other and provide real-time feedback. And that quality of teaching rises amongst my school. And then I ask them, do you want to be a coach? And they say, absolutely not. And I had the same thing when I was asked to become a coach. I really enjoy the work. I love working with teachers. But then when I asked, how does this differ in incentives? Because I actually took a pay cut to become a coach because I no longer qualified for 301. They said, it's easy, you just go to become administrator. And that is not what I wanted to do. If you see what they do really hard work. But I wanted to be as close to the classroom and impacting teachers as I could. And so what this endorsement does, it builds pathways for growth. So too often our talented teachers feel like the only advancement to leave is to go into administration or into coaching, taking good teachers out of the classrooms. And I've experienced this impact of this firsthand, but I've been able to support my teachers to grow from uncertainty to confidence because they had ongoing embedded support. And when you see teachers thrive and students achieve more than they thought possible, it's extremely rewarding. And what this would do, endorsing our teachers, would be this long-term investment in the field, showing that, yes, our well-prepared teacher leader not just influences their own classroom, but also their entire school community. And when we create these systems to develop and sustain our teacher leaders in the classrooms where they need to be every day to support students, we will see our students in Arizona show success every year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. All right, our next item then is questions and discussion. So I've got some questions. If you've got questions, let's start with people online. Are there any questions from the folks online?
I had one about the 15 hours. Can that be provided by the LEA? I think she referenced it, but I'm not sure if I understood that was a board approved program.
Right. So what we would do is we would create a process, an RFI process. And so it would be an accredited institution or it would be an educational organization. So an educational organization would need to go through the RFI process and submit to us what their coursework would be and if they met the requirements and got it. So they wouldn't automatically be on that list unless they've gone through the process. So I can't say yes or no because they would need to go through the process.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself.
No,
This is Member
that's okay.
Tebow.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. Thank you, Member Tebow.
Chair Peasley and members, that process mirrors other approval processes. So it's in line with, and I can't recall exactly, but there's things like
It would be similar to the SEI coursework or the literacy coursework.
Yeah.
and so the department would vet that and then move that recommendation to the board to be board approved. And then
Yes.
an educational organization leaves it kind of wide open.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from members online?
This is Kathy Webke. I have a comment and a question. First of all, to Jamie and the staff and the members that are the committee members that are there, thank you so much for this work. I know people have been working on this for a very long time, and so it's very exciting to be at this point. And I think it's a worthy endeavor, and I'm so glad to see this work continue. I do need I would like a point of clarification, and it might have been answered, and I might have just missed it either in the reading or in that previous question. So assume that I have been serving as an academic coach in my school district for many, many years, or I've done it in the past. Is there an opportunity for a district to sign off on that practicum experience because they've already done it?
Member Webke and Chair Peasley, we have not added that particular piece in as the practicum experience. However, if that's something that the committee members would like for us to explore, we could do that. I mean, we could look at that piece. That is something that has been brought up. One of the conversations that took place is, what would that look like, as there are several people that have done the work. Thank you. The university or the training provider would need to be the supervisor. That would be the conversation. That has been the conversation of stakeholders and part of the committee as well.
I would love to see if there's a way that can be worked in where a district could sign off on it. If that person, I'm making some assumptions, if that person has been evaluated and over time, and if a district, because from my own personal experiences, I was looking for an administrative certificate and needing to do that principal practicum.
Right.
Even if you want a university to sign off, you're going to have to pay tuition hours for, that credit. And so I just am trying to think of a way that might, especially for someone that's been doing it for a long time, that would like this certificate, this endorsement, I guess is a better word. I'd like to find a way that for those that have already been in the system and have been doing it, because I do think it could be a barrier for people that have been doing it.
Okay, thank you, Member Webke. So you're thinking possibly adding an E, a 2E, so it could be D or the completion of X number of clock hours verified by, and looks like there might be some information down there. Hi, Maura, welcome.
Guess what, Chair Peasley? I have Maura with me. And I love Maura.
We do too.
So yes, she makes me look really good. So in conversation, we were just discussing that actually could be embedded in that in the field experience. And so that could be part of that.
It's because the practice.
I think that would be great.
Part of that field experience and that practicum. Sorry, Member Webke.
It's more like.
I think if that, you obviously
Embedded in there. Yeah.
working more closely with the committee, and I know that there's always some pitfalls, and I'm assuming, like, to Paula's point, as she's been supervising the Arizona Teacher Solutions team, if she's had people that have gone through that program at the Arizona K-12 Center, they would be an authorized group that they could even, in retroactively, people that have done it, could also satisfy that requirement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
we
then
could,
that would be the verification of the of completion of our practicum hours, supervised practicum hours.
yes. Yes,
Thank
Chair
you.
Beasley.
Is there, Mara, I see you were talking, did you have additional information for that? In the microphone, please, though.
Chair Peasley, I was just saying that, when it's a field experience, that it's embedded in the coursework, I think there's less of a concern about that standalone practicum that would be required for the administrative certificate, because it's essentially, they could be working in their own district, and it's just, there's a structure there, but the college or university or approved training provider would just do a sign off that they had done these field experience. So it's like a structured field experience, but it's not standalone. So I don't think the cost would be an issue, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense. And in fact, if that can be made really clear in the endorsement language, because I know you get so many questions and there's a lot of confusion when it's not as clear as a bell, that the experience during coursework counts towards this practicum.
Sure.
I'm sorry,
Who's that up there?
Kathy
Oh,
Webke.
yeah, Member Webke, go ahead.
I guess also along with that line of thinking, I can see some teachers piecemealing this together, so it's not part of where they might go to NAU for one class,
Mhm.
it might go to the Arizona, it could be a variety of, and so it may not necessarily be in one institution, that coursework could be embedded in a certain series of courses, but in a different institution. And so for people that choose to piecemeal it, there needs to be a way to address it. And I'm really mindful of those who have been doing the work, obviously, or have experience or participated in the Arizona K-12 Center Solution Team. I just want to make sure that there's a way that those people can get that credit instead of what they might perceive as another hoop or having to pay for something that they've already done.
Absolutely, Member Webke. And one of the reasons that we went back in draft language 2 and we added educational organization is there was a concern that was brought about of educators that have been doing this work and have been taking some of these topics at places that were not necessarily colleges, universities, etc. And so that's why we did add in that additional piece of an educational organization. We don't want it to be, quote, another hoop, or how can this be essentially more cost effective? And how do we make sure that it is not something that's going to be a barrier? If some of these course topics have already been attained, then how do we make sure that we can give them credit?
Thank you very much. Member Horn.
We have other certificates that have experience that counts in place of the practicum. So I don't have that language in front of me, but I think I agree with Kathy that there are people who've been doing this, and regardless of coursework, regardless of institution, there's always a place where if you have completed, I don't know, 15, 45 clock hours of being a teacher leader or a coach, then the practicum is exempt. The practicum is not a part of the requirement. The experience takes the place of the practicum. So if we could embed that language, just like we do for teaching, if you've taught for 2 years, you don't have to student teach. So I think that the same kind of language should be in this endorsement that says if you have been a coach or a teacher leader, then you don't have to complete the practicum. It takes the place of the practicum. Did I make myself, did that make sense?
Right, and I think that would be adding an E. So that would be a D or E. Any other questions? Member Corbridge?
Yeah, Chair Pleasley, members of the committee, thank you for revisiting this. Going back a ways, we had this discussion about a year ago, and it really aligned with having the practicum hours, which most, if not all, of our endorsements have practicum hours. And I think that was the highlight, that this one wasn't requiring practicum hours. So that's why we had this discussion and kind of backtracked and asked you guys to go back out to the field and see how that would work. So thank you for bringing this back. I 100% agree and endorse having a teacher leadership endorsement. I'm just curious, with the qualifications, what role might an employee of a school district take that has the teacher endorsement on their certificate? If, are we talking about a classroom teacher? Because I heard that they're already working in the classroom, but we have instructional coaches that are already in the field doing instructional coaching. They may be qualified in some area or not. What would this do for a classroom teacher that wanted to get the teacher endorsement on their certificate?
Thank you for the question, Vice Chair Corporate. So this endorsement would allow a teacher who's looking to go down the leadership path and not necessarily into administration. So I'll pick on Jessica for just a second. So let's just say if Jessica wanted to put this on her certificate as a teacher, as a coach, as an instructional coach. So an instructional coach could hold this. It could then set her apart in her LEA. The LEA could utilize this for differentiation of pay. Let's say this is optional, of course. They could utilize that for specific requirements on a job description. Could also be held for mentoring. So our mentors, that could definitely be utilized for that. So it's a little bit above and beyond a grade level representative, a little bit above and beyond a department chair. So how do we set those apart from just a typical, you're going to be the grade level rep for the year, or you're going to be a department chair for the year? Not giving any discredit, because those educators are incredibly important, and the responsibilities that they hold, that's a lot. But how do we make sure that those that are teaching and leading PD, professional development specialists, or curriculum instruction and assessment specialists in an LEA, those are true, right, teacher leaders that are hitting those 5 topics that we're looking at? That's what we're looking to be able to say. These are the ones that you could say that leadership endorsement is preferred.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And that's what I had down. I just wanted to, from a superintendent's standpoint, I wanted to
Yes.
validate that what I was thinking aligned to what this endorsement would provide. So
Yes.
salary advancement is definitely one, because most districts have that salary advancement
Yes.
protocol. And then also a district could design a job description around
Absolutely.
this position that says this is a qualification to have the endorsement for this particular position. So, okay, thank you, Chair Peasley. Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any other questions? Member Philpott?
Thank you, Chair Peasley. Again, some of my concerns have been addressed by other members, specifically like Dr. Webke. And let's pick on Jessica again for another moment. And so Jessica, who has been doing this work for 10 years, would have to get, she has not, I'm not assuming that she hasn't attended an accredited institution to get this practicum. She would not currently qualify because her experience for 10 years in the field would not, we don't have a mechanism in this endorsement as it is currently written to allow that. And so like Dr. Webke, I have that concern where there are people and Dr. Horn who've been doing this work and there is no verification of experience like we do offer in some other endorsements. And so that's my biggest concern. And then not to take from Vice Chair, from my Vice Chair colleague from Holbrook, but again, being from rural Arizona, just the availability of our leaders in the 13 other counties that are considered rural, like what are their opportunities to get this coursework? Because we have leaders, you know, in some rural school districts, I have someone who's the bus driver, athletic director, and the PE teacher. And those are their 3 positions in this, you know, in Gila County. And so, you know, I think about that leader. So they're going to have to pay. Again, I don't want cost to be a barrier, especially, you know, being an educator, being representing on this committee, you know, we're still lowest in pay. And so again, with costs being an issue, people who are already doing the work and then asking them to pay to do the work where it isn't a requirement for a higher position. And frankly, at times districts require educators to take on these leadership roles for no advancement in pay. They're either teachers on assignments, but you're essentially the assistant principal, but you're not getting the pay bump to do that work. So with just seeing two institutions, American College of Education, Grand Canyon University, offering these ones, their availability in rural Arizona concerns me, because if they do an online class through Grand Canyon or American College of Education, I just worry about that cost to our 13 other counties and educators in those ones. So I worry about the cost. I worry about experience for people who've already been doing the work, like Jessica, and as well as making sure that we ensure that there is advancement if they do have this. And again, with the survey showing kind of split results with adding this practicum, I guess that would just be more information. How many educators were on that stakeholder group? People who are actually teaching and in the field?
I knew you were going to ask me that question.
That's always my number one question. How many people are actually doing the work who are asked?
So from the original committee invite, we had 32 stakeholders that were invited. And out of those, a little over half were educators.
Okay.
And then we asked them to send it out to as many people as possible or present to small groups.
And out of those 16 educators, could you tell me, I know you're going to hate this, how many were from the 13 counties that are not Maricopa and Pima?
We had educators from Santa Cruz, I had a superintendent from Mojave. I had someone from Navajo. I had someone from Pinal. I had someone from Cochise. And then the ones that answered the survey, I do not have their counties.
Okay.
But I can do that from now on.
Okay.
From surveys. We can collect counties for you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
Okay, Member Horn?
Thank you, Chairman Peasy. And I really appreciate all of the work that has been done over that timeline. That's absolutely incredible. A lot of the instructional coaches or mentors have gone through some kind of training in order to be an instructional coach or a mentor. And so in looking at this list and the kinds of training that most of them have already received, either from the district or from an outside entity, I think that when you look at professional education organizations, that includes a school district, correct? Then why couldn't the school district just go through the same process as anyone else and verify that the training that their mentors or coaches have received include these 5 areas or 6 areas, as well as having the experience, and they would be the ones to sign off on it, just like any other situation that we talk about. If you look at the courses that you've already taken or the training that you've already taken, I can't believe that all of these topics would not have been included in that training. Like I said, from the school district, from the K-12 center, from another entity, but it could be verified. Is that a possibility? Is that what you were thinking? Except for the experience. I think we have to add the experience.
Right. So we did discuss the coursework as a committee, the educators that came together, not necessarily being from districts, just or charter districts, to be very transparent. There is no consistency or quality control necessarily in that from one district to another. So what one district might consider teacher leadership compared to another district can be very different. And
Correct.
so that's not to say that a district cannot submit according to the to the RFI process.
Right. If I'm
and-
trying to look at a syllabus or the skills or the outcomes or the objectives of a course that I'm teaching, and the title of my course doesn't line up with the title of your course, then I just submit my document that says this is how we accomplish this. So you would have a baseline of consistency between these training entities, I think.
That's not to say that they could not submit and go through the RFI process.
Do we need to be more specific about an LEA, or does professional education organizations cover that?
I think professional educational organization covers that.
Then I would submit that we need to look at how to verify past experience or current experience, just like we have in other certificates.
And that would then be part of that the process piece where it is embedded, correct, in that experience. It would be embedded in the coursework that
No,
would
not
count.
necessarily embedded in a coursework. I can be a mentor in a school district, having gone through the school district's training and have these clock hours already done, but it was not embedded in a course from an institution.
In
It
the
was
field work.
my job. It was field work. It was like 2 years of teaching, again, replaces student teaching. So I think that experience in the field, like Kathy brought up, Dr. Webke brought up in the beginning, should be counted as the practicum, but not embedded in coursework. It's
Okay.
separate. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members? Okay, my turn. Yeah. Like the committee members to go first, so I don't have to speak as much if you've asked my questions. Thank you very much for bringing this up and Member Horn, because I think that's what one of the things that we're looking for to overcome the barriers that happen whenever when the State Board of Education creates a new certificate or a new endorsement. There's always the challenge of what do we do with the people that are already embedded, already doing the job, and how do they get grandfathered in? And years ago, we used to talk about grandfathering in. And so we don't talk about that anymore, but definitely to come up with the language within the endorsement to make that clear. And if school districts, if LEAs are able to submit RFIs for consideration for approval, then that will certainly solve a lot of the issues. Then that is going to apply, as we know, pretty much to the big counties. And those of us out in the rural areas we don't have as extensive professional development and training programs within our tiny school districts, but at least it does give away for those that have been working for many years as coaches. And I do have to thank you so much for all of the work on this. I do appreciate that you've taken it back, and the stakeholders have continued. Some of them stuck with it, and I know that's hard. That's hard for them to go from year to year too. I think we're looking pretty good. The one concern that I had, because I've heard this over other endorsements and certificates, if someone has already taken courses or they go the a la carte route that Member Webke was talking about, how are they going to get those 15 hours? Would there be a barrier to Grand Canyon or ACE program or any of the other colleges or universities, could they refuse to do that 15 hours of supervision? How would somebody who's taken a la carte get that 15 hours? And we're talking about somebody new looking to get this.
Chair Peasley, if it were somebody new and they took topics at various places, as long as they could show us that they have these pieces, I don't foresee anything.
Thank you, Mara.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm looking at Maura because I know that we've talked about this because in some cases, some topics might be covered in more than one place.
Yes, they definitely, endorsements are more flexible than your certificate programs. So they can do a la carte. With the field experience or practicum hours, they might have to take a course that includes that. But I think in terms, and this may be a question for our IHE representatives, but I believe that that could be something that's a structured field experience that could be relatively easily included in the coursework because you have these individuals are in the districts. And so that it could be just some sort of structured experience. Essentially, from our point of view, we just need the university or the training provider to say, this person completed 15 clock hours. That's all we're looking for.
Okay.
I think in terms of the flexibility, that could be a communication issue that we just, so.
Chair Peasley, if I could.
Yes, go ahead. Director Duplatti.
There's kind of two pieces to this. There's the training components, which are under item C, and C related to number 3 opens the door. So C can be a la carte from community colleges, universities, any place with, official transcripts. If I've taken part of an administrative program in some of those courses, so they can kind of a la carte that, and they can, under the current rule language as proposed, 3 opens the door to a la carting with other approved program, and that's the coursework. We're kind of melding between the two. We're kind of melding between the training components, which can be a la carte, and then the practicum piece, which I'm hearing is the concern. And so if there's language about experience waiving the practicum, as there are in other, if we can build that maybe and bring that back to the next meeting, that might show you the path that they, under what I'm reading, and I'm looking at my ADE friends, but how I read this is C, if you've got it on a transcript, you're a la carte golden, because there's no endorsement ed prep programs. There are just endorsement coursework.
Right.
But 3 opens the door to board approved folks such as LEAs, other organizations out there that do a lot of work in leadership and school improvement that might be tapping into this. And they provide training as part of the school improvement process. If they become an approved, if they get on the approved list, that could count. And so those coursework requirements are there. And that also opens the door for, if those training providers or the LEAs are providing the field experience, if we add that language, if we add the E about signing off for time served, then they could couple that with the piecemeal coursework and then serve in that role, add the endorsement. And, it's just kind of like, it's build it and they will come kind of situation with this endorsement. And, the notion of micro-credentials has been around for a long time. And why would you go out and add a micro-credential? But people want to represent their expertise sometimes, build their resume, add that to their. So, that's kind of a little bit of the spirit of this, is that there are probably few programs out there right now, but build that they will come. How will LEAs leverage this? How will school districts leverage this? And then who will add coursework? And again, a lot of these school improvement, legit school improvement folks are out there training teachers to be teacher leaders and coaches. And there's an opportunity for them to represent that. So, and I'll shut up now.
Thank you very much. That's interesting. I had written build and they will come. That was going to be one of my comments. Member Horn?
Can I present to you one more scenario? If I'm a superintendent, say in rural Arizona, and I send a group of my teachers to the Arizona K-12 Center to be trained in their mentoring program, can I verify that these things were covered and taught within the context of that training? And would you give the school district an approved program based on that?
Well, if the Member Horn, if the training came from the AZK-12 Center, then AZK-12 Center would be an educational organization, so they would need to submit for RFI.
Okay, and
So,
what about
and if-
institutes like cognitive coaching that provide training for mentors and coaches? If a district can verify that they in fact have had their teachers trained in all of these areas, then the district itself could be approved for this program. Is that correct? Or does the entity have to apply?
So I'm asked, so I'm
Sorry.
that's okay. I'm like, you stumped me. But if this goes through and if they're sending teachers after approval, let's say, then AZK-12 or another entity similar could go through the process, and their trainings could be, let's say, if they got on the list, then their trainings could be approved. So then it would be fine.
Okay, so the
Does that make
entity,
sense?
the professional organization itself has to go through the approval process.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's not the district, it's not the LEA that's offering the trainings.
Okay,
It's the actual organization itself.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
Chair Peasley.
Yes,
Chair-
go ahead.
Chair Peasley, Member Horn. So like, borrowing from a classroom-based ed prep program. So classroom-based ed prep programs, a full-on legit, to regular certification, and they can cobble pieces together, right? They'll submit as an approved to be approved, and they may take on the training pieces for these, and then they may outsource science of reading. They
Right.
might outsource this. And so there's certainly the option. How I read it in number 3 is the Arizona K-12 Center could get approval. And then anybody going through that track, they sign off on, and it's good. But if an LEA put together, and let's put a rural context on this. They take on the data analysis and the continuous improvement, but they farm out to the county soup, or they farm out to another online organization for number 1, but they have that program vetted through the ADE, knowing that the district's going to deliver these pieces, they're going to farm this out, and they'll sign off. Then I think that's still an opportunity that's still
thank you.
kind of mixed in there with DN3.
Thank you for the
Okay.
clarification.
That was magic that just happened behind me.
Go ahead.
That's what they were talking about, was putting that together, Chair Peasley. So
Yeah.
sorry, I did not know what was happening behind me. So that was amazing. That was my team back there. I'm so proud of them.
Hello, thank you very much. But yes, and that makes sense because we do need to recall that the endorsements are significantly more flexible
Yes.
than the certificate programs. And this certainly sounds good. So it sounds like we're leaning towards adding an E for the for practicum with being able to use some form of prior experience.
Yeah, Chair Peasley and members, so my suggestion is that we let the department go back and develop language around E. To your point, I pulled up the board rule, like, for instance, another certificate endorsement, 2 years of verified, whatever, will waive the practicum as defined. And so my suggestion is, since we have a meeting on the books for November, we let the department bring that
Yeah.
language back rather than trying to craft it really quick.
That would be fine. That would be excellent. I don't know, do we need to have a motion on that, or we're just going to go ahead and we all can we just agree, thumbs up, that this makes good sense?
Chair Peasley, if you wanted to maybe offer somebody do a motion just to table this to the next meeting pending ADE. That,
No.
that might codify it.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to table this endorsement to the next meeting, awaiting ADE amendment.
So move.
I so move. Member Weber?
Okay. Member Weber moved,
I'll second.
seconded by Member Horn. Any discussion?
Just Chair Peasley, we've delayed this quite a bit. And will we have this ready to go in November? Because this needs to be something that I believe needs to be ready by potentially the beginning of next year for our teacher endorsements. So is there any other things that could be a barrier? Because I think November needs to be the point where we have a formal.
Chair
vote on
Peasley and Vice Chair Cooperage. I think we've got examples of the language. Again, I hate to put staff on the spot to do something and have an unintended. I mean, there's plenty of time to fix this because, again, the CAC makes a recommendation, then the board moves to, and then there's a rulemaking process there where it's open for 3 months and there's opportunity to adjust it still. I've given them enough time to come together if they can talk about the timeline to develop that language.
Chair Peasley, may I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please,
for
go
you?
ahead.
When you are asking about experience to waive that practicum, what years of experience? So we're not coming back with something and then we have to go back and forth. Is there like the equivalent?
We have used 2 years in the past, and I've heard discussion mention of 2 years, which would someone were actually working as a teacher in the field as a teacher leader, as opposed to having had perhaps direct supervision and training in these actual concepts. Does 2 years sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Could I clarify, from a human resources perspective, supporting countless educators in applying for endorsements, and coming from a rural context most recently, when we talk about mentorship in our rural schools, that is not a standalone position, that is not a title. It is an add-on, it is a supplemental that is done outside of a full day of teaching typically. So I guess I would want, if we're going to talk about verifying years of experience in a role, what would that look like for rural educators who are on a supplemental stipend for mentoring? And could that be considered as part of the ability to waive? Because they most likely, like to your point, Member Philpott, are wearing all the hats, and we will not want to
Absolutely.
discourage or present those barriers for our rural educators.
Is it clock out?
Yeah.
As Chair Peasley, Member Bitterman, I mean, typically the way the rule is written, that really the onus is on the LEA to determine that. I mean, that's kind of how all the other language is written. And so the intent is there through the language about field experience or practicum and leadership. Again, if we're talking about waiving just the practicum, we're not talking about waiving the training. So the training is still there, however it's gotten. It's just I think what the language that is being asked for is, how do we give credit for they have some background in training, they've been doing the job. And so if how the department, I believe, interprets a lot of this is it's on the LEA to determine whether they believe that that is aligned.
And I think that the LEA could say we could say in this 2 years experience as a teacher leader and not add in full time, because if that is what would be the kicker for the rural district. So just 2 years experience as a teacher leader.
Or coach
Or right, and that type position.
Okay.
Would that work for you?
That would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that's
Chair
good.
Peasley. Yes,
Okay.
it gives us some direction on how to craft that.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for clarifying also, Member Bitterman. Thank you.
So Chair Peasley, just to follow up. So this could be done internally, that we don't have to go back out of the stakeholder group or share okay. That's
No,
my point. of
Vice Chair
clarification.
Corporate, we're on
I don't
it.
want to be back here next year talking about this again because it's a
Nope.
good thing. We need to move forward. Okay.
We,
Thank
we
you.
will have this ready to go in November for you.
Are there any other points of discussion? Well, this is why we're asking. Are there any other points of discussion? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of tabling this signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very. Motion carried. Thank you very much. The next item is item 3, with the presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed amendments to R72, 6112, 612 relating to the career and technical education teaching certificates. Deputy Director Duplanty.
Chair Peasley and members, thank you. I received a request from the CTED superintendents as I moved over from ADE into my role here at the state board. Contacted the ADE, and we also did some legal kind of background checks. The statutes changed significantly in 2018, as many members on this committee are aware. And so there was some codified things in state statute around assessments and timelines and that type of thing. So we took our time to do some due diligence, interface with the Attorney General to get some direction, and then handed it over to the ADE to work with stakeholders and their folks and go through their process. And so again, I'm just teeing up Jamie Wilbur again to present this to you.
Hello again. I am back to roll through this presentation to you. As Director Duplanty shared with you, there was a request that came forward regarding the career and technical education proposal regarding a professional knowledge exam on the CTE certificate. And so I'm going to go through what that request was and where we have come today. So there was a request from the CTED superintendents that came to the State Board of Education. And what we did is we did a little bit of background with State Board that as Deputy Duplanty shared, it went to the Attorney General's office. We needed to get a little bit of background information so we knew what was in our purview and what was not. And then from there, what we did is we held stakeholder meetings. We did some feedback from stakeholders, and I will share with you that we got many more responses than 7 this time around. And so we had to come to a little bit of a compromise on what was proposed from the superintendent CTEDs. And so we have some proposed rule change to the standard CTE certificates. And that's what this presentation is about for you today. So we have some, so I'm going to start with you. If you know anything about CTE certification pathways, it's a lot. I'll just kind of give you that. So I'm going to give you just kind of the basic information. These are the initial issuance requirements and the allowable deficiencies as they currently stand. All of these options require hands-on experience in the area that educators would be teaching. You'll notice over on the left-hand side, there are several options when an educator is opting to get a CTE certificate. So you'll notice there's option A, there's option B, there's option C, and there's option D. So thank goodness I have amazing people in the certification unit that help when it comes to these certificates. And then you'll also notice that over on the right-hand side, there are allowable deficiencies. Currently, all of these deficiencies are required within 3 years. So there's the AZ and US Constitution, there is the specified CTE coursework or the ADE CTE approved trainings, and then there is the NES, that's the National Series Assessment of Professional Knowledge, which is the secondary exam, or there's the qualification for an exam waiver. So I want you to kind of keep that specifically at the forefront because that's what we'll be discussing today. Moving on to this next piece here, the initial issuance for CTE certification pathways. This again follows under board rules. So you'll see here that the standard CTE certificate can be received under reciprocity. So again, if an applicant holds a valid certificate from another state, then they can receive a CTE certificate as long as they're in good standing. And then, of course, we have the standard specialized CTE certificate. That would be if they have 5 years of work experience in a CTE area. And then it shows you one of the following areas. Again, kind of noting there what the requirements are. Both of these established are in state statute. And then you'll also notice over there the allowable deficiencies required in 3 years. The statute exempts applicants from the PK exam requirement here. I want to kind of note that. So this just kind of gives you these 2 slides, maybe. Again, just the pathway to CTE certificates. So what came about was this request. This was a quick snapshot, a letter that was received from CTED superintendent and on behalf of all of the CTED superintendents. And the issue was that the standard career and technical education certificates require that passing NES assessment of professional knowledge, that secondary PK exam, or that qualifying for an exam waiver within that 3 years of issuance. And the concern is that applicants can qualify for an exam within 3 years of full-time teaching. And what they are asking for is that they stated that the current system results in negative consequences, that teachers who are proactive and get their certification early to be prepared for job interviews, they can't ever get the exam waiver because they get their certification early and then, quote, the clock starts ticking and then they never have the full 3 years of teaching. And so then what happens is anybody that and unintentionally rewards those last minute certification efforts, and that's perceived as being unfair by some of the educators. It discourages part-time positions because the PK exam requirement is for full-time. You have to have 3 years of full-time teaching. And then, of course, the hiring difficulties that it creates. So they feel compelled to hire uncertified candidates due to that uncertainty of the surrounding certification. And so there were a lot of concerns with this. And so they brought it to our attention. And the overall request was that they wanted to just remove the NES professional knowledge secondary exam requirement altogether. So that came to the state board, and there was some overall information that was brought to Bruce and team, and the slides are going to kind of outline, the issues and the concerns. But before we kind of go into that, what I want to share with you is just some basic baseline data about CTE certificates in Arizona at this time. Okay. So big picture CTE data before we jump into some of the next pieces. Currently in Arizona, we have 9,433 active CTE certificates. Out of that 9,433, we have, you'll see there about 2,400, right, specialized CTE certificates that are not required to pass the exam. And out of that 9,433, we have about close to 2,200 that currently have that outstanding PK secondary exam deficiency. So just wanting to kind of give you the lay of the land of what's happening. We also pulled some data out of our applicants just within the last year. So I wanted to see within the last year, October 2024 through September of 2025, out of those CTE certificates that were issued, how many of them met the PK, that professional knowledge requirement, at the time of issuance? So within that last year, how did they meet the PK exam? So 3.6% met the exam requirement through reciprocity. So they had an out-of-state exam, they met it through reciprocity. 65% took the exam and they passed the exam at the time of issuance. 3%, you'll notice there, passed an out-of-state exam at the time of issuance. And then 25% met with 3 years of teaching experience at the time of issuance. So just to kind of give you a little bit of data on where things are, we wanted to see what's happening in the field compared to, what the issue is, bless you, what the issue is coming from our CTED superintendents. So going back to, we want to, the issue was we want to remove that professional knowledge secondary exam requirement to here's what the data shows us, to now let's go to what does the state statute say? Do we have the purview to do this? And what kind of implications would this have? What does this look like? So in state statute, it is written in there that you'll notice that this is a requirement. So this is not something that we can do. We, as Deputy DePlanty said, this is not something that can just be taken out. So according to the Attorney General, we got that opinion. And so we do not have the purview to do that. We shared this information with the CTE department as well as a stakeholder group. And we wanted to make sure that they knew, we hear you, we understand what your concerns are. And so what else can be done to make sure that we are listening to you, and how do we find a happy medium? How do we work with you, and how do we come to, a compromise, if you will? So again, these are the state statutes and the board rule about within that 3 years, that passing score on the professional knowledge exam is written right there. Maybe. Oops. There we go. Okay. So the proposal in response to request, because of that legislation, we're not able to accommodate that request. However, we are able to propose the rationale for the following. We propose to extend the time frame for all allowable deficiencies from 3 years to 4 years. And so the rationale of this would be, we don't have the authority to remove that PK requirement entirely per that ARS 15533F. The board may grant a certificate for more than 3 years to applicants who have not met the PK exam requirement. The proposal would remove the issue of penalizing teachers who are proactive and obtain their standard CTE certificate before they begin teaching. And the department recommends aligning the time frame for all deficiencies from 3 years to 4 years. That would then avoid that confusion, and it would reduce those paperwork burdens. So that alignment piece we feel would be in the best interest all the way around. So having said that, there we go. You'll notice here that right at this point, we want to walk you through the proposed changes to the standard CTE rule. Substantive changes and technical changes are also included in here. So define the terms deficiency, equivalent department or board CTE approved training, extending that time frame of allowable deficiencies. So from 3 years to 4 years, that will be the big thing that I want you to pay attention to. And then the other pieces that we noticed is the updating of outline. We needed to update that because we needed to conform with the Arizona rulemaking guidelines. And then there were some other technical cleanups that needed to be done. We figured if we were going to do this, this was definitely the time. If you remember last year when we had all kinds of technical cleanups. So there's some strikeouts in here if you noticed when you got your materials. So I'll apologize for that ahead of time with all of that. So again, as Maura does for us, she does a beautiful job of things on one side, the proposal on one side, and then the rationale over on the other. We're suggesting that we start with the definitions first. With this, this rule, the definitions were not at the beginning, and so we are suggesting that we start with the definitions first. You'll notice here that CTE should be is defined as career and technical education under the rule for all certification definitions. The term CTE field of study points to the guidance on CTE teacher certification to establish the CTE areas. So you'll see that there. It's maybe. Thank you. Thank you for helping. On the next slide, you'll notice here in blue that we are reducing redundancy by defining equivalent training instead of repeating the information under the CTE option. Oh, thank you. Okay, I was like, wait a second. Moving to the next one, deficiencies, the non-disciplinary suspend a certificate. Once the deficiency is removed, the certificate validity is reinstated. So that part is noted up under that rule change proposal. We're moving subsection A to B1, and then we're including rule explaining the policy when applicants do not meet that deficiency requirement within the allowable time frame there. It worked that time. Thank you. On this page here, you'll notice this one is we're doing some technical changes. This is the one where we're aligning rulemaking guidelines, which indicate rule outlines should not exceed 4 levels. So this is where some of the strikeouts are going to start here. So the rulemaking manual indicates that the rule, again, should not exceed those 4 levels. And so this is where we struck a substantial section of the rule so that we can move, quote, up the outline levels. So we're going to move all of those up to 4. And then because we struck everything under C1 and 2, we included the underlines and the strike throughs to show that changes in this slide deck. So you'll start to see that. And then under 1, towards the bottom of this slide, you'll see that technical revision to begin with the Arizona DPS IVP fingerprint clearance card requirement that is added in there. On this next page, you'll notice towards the bottom, we struck out that hours may have been accumulated before obtaining a certification. So the rationale here is that we're striking that illogical statement that required work experience hours may have been accumulated before obtaining a certification. And on the next slide, this is where you will see that it's not only the technical, but this is where we've added in changing the 3 years to 4 years. So we are starting to align that time frame for all allowable deficiencies. And then again, some technical revision to reduce that redundancy. So you'll notice towards the bottom, we've added, or towards the top, we've added in courses or equivalent department or board CTE approved training. And then towards the bottom, that's where we've taken out some of those redundant phrasing. On the next slide, you'll see where it says a valid Arizona provisional. So provisional teaching certificates are no longer issued. So we needed to take that part out. And then underneath that, 3 semester hours of courses or equivalent department, again, board CTE training, we've added that technical change. And then towards the bottom, again, taking out the redundancy there. So all in blue for you. Moving into this one. This one is striking out the illogical statement. Hours may have been accumulated before obtaining a certification. And then towards the bottom, again, we're adding in the 4 years from the 3 years so that we're aligning the time frame for all allowable deficiencies. And you'll notice as we're walking through this, from the beginning, it was all those options on how you obtain a CTE certificate. So we're on option B right now. And then when I go to the next slide now, oops, too fast. Sorry, my fault. We're in option C here. So what we're doing is we're kind of rolling through these. And then what we're doing is right here, option C, right? Technical update to the requirements. So through here, we're just updating technical pieces. And then again, aligning the timeframes within 4 years. So making sure there's consistency throughout all the different options. And then also adding in the courses or equivalent department or board CTE training. So you'll see a pattern, right, that you saw on some of the other ones, and then taking out some of those other pieces from down below where we added it up top where it makes more sense there. And then under option D, that technical update, we wanted to separate the bachelor's degree and the CTE teacher prep requirements. Since the CTE teacher prep programs may not be included in the required degree. So we needed to separate those two pieces out. And then just making sure that that language is all cleaned up in this one for option D. So there was a lot in that one. Okay. Maybe there it goes. Okay. And then in this one under option D, the technical update were just some clarity on the teacher preparation requirement for option D. So you'll see their completion of a teacher preparation program in CTE field of study from that board approved educator prep program or from the accredited institution offering substantially similar training. So making sure that that is updated for clarity. And then down at the bottom, again, removing the unnecessary statement. And then the CTE proposal. So this is where we get into the AZ and US constitutions and the PK exam. Again, updating the rule change here for within 3 years to 4 years. So this is the proposal. We want to extend that PK exam deficiency. And this is in response to the CTED superintendent's request and the stakeholder feedback, which I'll share with you in just one moment. And then again, aligning the time frame for the AZ and US Constitution, making sure that all of the deficiencies are aligned for clarity. So those are, in essence, the technical and substantive changes for the actual rule in and of itself. We did hold a stakeholder meeting, a virtual meeting that was held with stakeholders and our CTE unit from ADE. We had 24 stakeholders that were invited, 15 accepted the invite, 11 attended. Representatives from 12 counties were invited, CTE directors, superintendents, CTED directors. We had representatives from urban, suburban, and rural remote. We reviewed the request and we had discussion on possible draft language. And then we had the feedback survey that was open from 9:10 to 9:25. So who responded? CTE teachers, CTE coordinators and directors, superintendents. We had representatives from education professions. We had administrators. And where were they from? So this is not an exhaustive list, but these are a majority of the people that responded. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor of who responded to the survey. And the screenshot from below is from Microsoft Forms, where it gives you that lovely little word cloud. So you could kind of see just in general, and then where it says from where, I just kind of grabbed those. So you had an idea of some of the more specific who was represented. And we had 156 responses. So that made us very happy compared to 7 from the last one that I had shared with one of the ones that we had from one of our other surveys. And what we asked was, what is your opinion of extending the time frame for CTE teachers to meet the professional knowledge secondary exam and other allowable deficiency requirements? And so 92% agreed with extending the time frame to meet the CTE allowable deficiencies from 3 years to 4 years. We did have some people that disagreed, and then we had some that were other. And so I wanted to share with you just some of the comments that came across. And I know that this was provided to you ahead of time to be able to kind of read what educators were saying. Overall, it was very positive about wanting to extend the time frame. Very thankful for the opportunity, asking their opinion about it, thanking us for reaching out to them, and making sure that their opinion was heard. So I think that that's very valuable input. But I also wanted to share with you the ones that disagreed as well. It's important to make sure that their voices are heard as well. And so the ones that disagreed, again, just making sure out of complete transparency that you had access to that. And then we did have a couple of people that they literally wrote in there, I'm neutral about this topic. So wanting to make sure that you also had access to those, making sure that you had access to that as well. And that is our presentation on this request for this change in rule.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that input and the summary, especially of the responses, the survey responses. I do have a question. Member Weber, I would like to lean on we'd all like to lean on your expertise.
Okay, go ahead.
As the CTE representative on this committee, what are your thoughts on the recommendations?
I'm absolutely pleased with all the work that ADE's put into this. Getting the stakeholder responses, I think, were critical. I think a great example is Dr. Corbridge with Holbrook. It is an annual task to make sure that we have enough qualified CTE teachers in our classrooms. And by giving an additional year for them to address their deficiencies is huge. Most of these people are coming straight from industry and now want to give back. And it is a tremendous undertaking for these teachers to come from industry and start teaching high school students. And there's just so much that goes into that. And we want to keep quality teachers here. And we feel this is we're heading in the right direction by giving this additional year. There's so many that have been really close, they didn't quite make it. And then they've gone back to industry. And so I'm confident this will make a huge, huge difference in giving them added time. We require a lot in current tech ed. They need to certify students within their first 2 years. And so there's just so much that goes into that for us to award that additional funding. So I'm happy to address any more specific questions, but just know as a CTED superintendent, we're very pleased with ADE's work and the potential changes we have here.
Thank you so much, Member Weber. Are there any other questions or points of discussion from those online? Okay, how about here in the room? Any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may.
Thank you.
I had a point of clarification in looking at the initial letter that was submitted from the CTED superintendent, and knowing some of the work that is happening across multiple schools with reduction in force. Every FTE matters, and sometimes when our industry partners come to join education, they may not be doing it in a full-time capacity. So when we look at that waiver, if I read it correctly, R7-2-612, Section C1A, it says, or qualify for a waiver of this assessment. So if I'm understanding correctly, I think we have some purview over what the waiver would look like. And I'm just wondering if the full-time experience is required, because oftentimes at a school district, we don't need a full-time welding teacher. We don't need a full-time law and public safety or fire science teacher. It might be a 0.2 FTE or it might be a 0.5 FTE. And so when we look at that waiver to qualify, is there any consideration for the full-time experience language? I don't know if we have purview over that, but I could see that continuing to be a barrier.
Mara, do you want to come up?
Yeah, I was going to
Thank
say,
you.
Chair Peasley and Member Bitterman, I believe it's in statute, but please don't quote me on that right now.
Chair Peasley, Member Bitterman and members, and Maura can head nod. So all certificates and all the certification point back to definitions in R72601. The statute says teaching time, or it says teacher. And then in board rule, we define teaching experience means full-time employment, which included full responsibility for the planning, delivery, instruction, and evaluation of student learning, except for meeting capstone. So it's the statute points to ways to meet the exams. They both have different menus of ways to meet that. Rule operationalizes it and further defines it. When we went through in 2018, we talked about that full-time teaching, the definition of our teaching experience to waive practicums and student teaching and all that type of thing meant full-time. And so it's that rule, that definition applies to this.
I appreciate that context. So then with that already being defined in R72601, I think it is beneficial, just going back to the data, 35% of our CTE educators are struggling to meet this requirement. 65% have it upon initial certification. So I don't see any harm in offering an additional year. I know those first 3 years are jam-packed with just the coursework that they're often trying to fit into learning how to teach, learning how to get their own students certified. So I think this would be a really great way to help that other 35% stay with us and be able to retain them in those positions.
Thank you very much, Member Bitterman. Does anybody else have any questions, suggestions? I think this makes great sense. Go ahead, Member Philpott.
Oh, thank you, Chair Peasley. My only suggestion, this is excellent work. Thank you so much for doing that. I have twin daughters who are seniors this year, and one of them is in her CTE course, and she loves it. And her educator, her teacher in the classroom is from, another field and has all these different menus of options to keep them at our schools. And so I appreciate that. The only thing is where it says like the different courses for hours, if it could be like in the teacher leader endorsement, like where it's a list instead of one big meaty paragraph. As an English teacher, that's just always helpful for me when I'm having people, when they have a long list of different options. That is my only suggestion. Otherwise, the content is awesome. Thank you.
And then there's the CTE rule and all the very many varied numbers of different areas of certification. And I believe that's why we have it as such, because we looked at it how many years ago? I don't know, Bruce, were you even with us when we looked at it the first time? I think, Member Corporate, Member Horn, you were with us. I know Member Thibault was with us at that time when we first were looking at it. And I think we spent several meetings, and that was back in the days when we had them all day. They went from 9 to 3. And we spent several days looking at that. So that's the complexity of this rule, and that we've got it down to this few pages is a true testament to the monumental and phenomenal work that our certification division does and puts into it. It's also the collective experience and that knowledge as it has been brought about since this committee was reassembled in 2006. It's been a lot of work that that institutional memory has continued. So if there's not any other discussion, I'm going to call for a motion to approve this. Is there anybody who would like to make a motion?
I would love to do that.
Oh,
Chair
thank you,
Peasley.
Matt.
Yes, I would move that we approve these recommendations as presented.
Okay, Matt, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion happily carried. Thank you so much. Okay.
I'm doing a dance right now, just for the record.
Happy dance from Matt. Thank you so much. I tell you, we just appreciate the leadership of all the members and their roles on this committee, that we actually can lean into the expertise when we need it. It's phenomenal. The university people are here, and to let us know, the charter school people, your input is equally as important, because you're also taking a look at the certification issues. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4 then. It is the summary of current events, future meeting dates and times, and items for future agendas. Deputy Director Duplanty, please.
Thank you, Chair Peasley and members. Just for our new members and for new-ish members as well. So the recommendation today for the CTE proposed changes will be put on a future board meeting. And then the board will consider that. Open rulemaking for the board on the fast track is about a 3-month process. They open on 1 month. We have a public hearing. We have an update on the second meeting. And then by the third meeting, it could be adopted. And that's the fast track. If there's a lot of comments from the field, we take more time to update the board, but we'll certainly move on the CTE recommendations to a future board meeting. Future meetings for you all, we have November 5th on the books. We're looking at bringing back the teacher leadership endorsement, as well as the department is going to bring forward some issues and proposals for the alternate teaching certs. So that'll be a robust discussion, I'm sure. And then I did email you all about tentatively holding January 7th. It looks like we could have quorum just if we need it. Is kind of where I'm at. If the alternative teaching discussion, if we have, if we just need more room, we've got it, and we can certainly be flexible too, and look at February if we need to and move. But I'll communicate with you on that. But other than that, that's all I've got. And thank you for being here, and thank you for your expertise and the robust discussion, as always.
Well, we certainly thank you, Deputy Director Duplanty, and I'm sorry, Associate Superintendent Wilbur. I called you a director and inappropriate.
I'll answer to anything. It's fine.
Well, we just thank you and Mara and everyone else who's here, and all of our wonderful committee members who are always so very well prepared and have the best questions that could possibly be asked. And I thank you all so much. At this point, if there's nothing else, then we're going to adjourn this meeting of the Certification Advisory Committee at 10:54. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair
Thank you.
Peasley.
See you in November.